In 1949, Taiwan was not a superpower. It was a cage for the defeated, a small island flooded with refugees with no oil, no resources, and most importantly, no future. Most experts at the time bet that this island would collapse within a decade, either by starvation or by being swallowed by the Civil War. But today, if this island stopped working for just 1 week, the global economy would have a heart attack. Not because of politics, not because of culture, but because of something invisible inside the phone you are holding, the car you are driving, and even the missile sitting in a silo. This is the story of how a place that was never meant to exist became a place that is impossible to replace. Let's rewind. After World War II, China fell into a brutal civil war. The communists won. The losing side, the nationalists, ran. They didn't leave with pride. They fled with gold, soldiers, and a deep sense of humiliation. They washed up on Taiwan. Their leader, Chiang Kai-shek, didn't come here to build a paradise. He came to build a fortress. He was a military dictator, and his only goal was to fight his way back to the mainland. But Taiwan had massive problems. Overcrowded land and skyrocketing inflation. A loaf of bread today cost the same as a house yesterday. Chiang Kai-shek looked at the mess and realized a ruthless truth. You cannot feed an army with empty stomachs. So he did something that capitalists usually fear: land reform, but not with sweet promises, with iron and blood. The government stripped land from wealthy landlords and gave it to the farmers. Cruel? Yes. Unfair to the old elite? Definitely. But it worked. Productivity soared. And society stabilized. That was the first lesson. Sometimes, to save a sinking ship, you have to throw the cargo overboard. For the next 20 years, Taiwan survived by doing what every poor country does: selling cheap labor. They made plastic toys, textiles, umbrellas. They were the world's cheap factory. But then, disaster struck in the 1970s. First, the United Nations kicked Taiwan out. The Western world, led by the US, started shaking hands with mainland China. Taiwan was isolated. Diplomatically, they were being erased from the map. Second, other countries started making cheap goods, better than them. Taiwan stood on the edge of a cliff. They were too small to be self-sufficient, they had no resources to sell, and now they had no friends. Most countries in this situation would collapse, but Taiwan chose a different path. An insane gamble. A visionary official named KT Lee looked at the map and said, "We can no longer compete with muscle. We must compete with brains." He decided Taiwan would stop making plastic dolls. They would build high-tech. But what exactly? The US and Japan already dominated everything. TVs, fridges, cars. They needed something new, something that no one else wanted to do. And this is where the story gets interesting. KT Lee called a man back from America, Morris Chang. Morris was not a politician. He was a veteran engineer, and he had a strange idea. At that time, American tech giants like Intel did everything. They designed the chips and they built the factories to make them. Morris Chang said, no, Taiwan would build a company that did just one thing: manufacture chips for everyone else. Imagine it like this. American companies were arrogant chefs. They loved creating recipes, but they hated washing dishes and standing in a hot kitchen. Taiwan said, give me your recipes. I will cook them better than you ever could. And I promise, I will never open a restaurant to compete with you. That was the birth of TSMC. At first, no one believed them. Why would a poor island dare to make the most complex technology known to man? But they did it. They worked with the discipline of an army and the precision of an artist. They accepted being the shadow, so American companies could shine. Time passed, smartphones were born, the internet exploded, AI emerged, missiles became smarter. Everything was changed, and the most modern, smallest, most powerful chips almost all came from one single place. TSMC was no longer just a factory. It became the beating heart of the digital economy. Taiwan didn't choose to be famous, they chose to be essential. And that is what analysts call the Silicon Shield. Why does the Western world care about this tiny island? Why are they ready to send aircraft carriers to protect it? Not just for democracy, but because if this island falls, Silicon Valley goes dark, Wall Street panics, and the US military runs out of parts. Taiwan